Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Now, it has been months since the gubernatorial elections and weeks since the Lagos State Governorship Election Tribunal struck out petitions by Labour Party and its candidate, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, and the People's Democratic Party, his counterpart, Osarogie, popularly known as Jandor, against the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the re-election rather, of Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Now, following the verdict, the Labour Party decides to focus on Supreme Court and, of course, continue seeking justice.
In another development, the Lagos State government has refuted accusations of financial wrongdoing made against Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu by the Labour Party's governorship candidate, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, who claimed on his Twitter account, his X account, that Sanwo-Olu had used public funds to finance his response to the electoral petition that Labour Party had filed to oust him. He said that 50 million naira in legal fees were paid to 4 lawyers by the governor's out-of-state funds, a claim that the Lagos State government has denied through a statement by the Commissioner of Information, Gbenga Omotosho. In the next few minutes, we'll be discussing these issues, including the state of Lagos. Joining us this morning is the Lagos State gubernatorial candidate at the 2023 elections, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'd like to get into the meat of the conversation. Talk to us about your claims. The Lagos State, of course, has refuted claims that the governor has misappropriated funds that was spent to pay for the legal fees defending the governor's position. But you have claimed that the governor, of course, has misappropriated these funds. So talk to us about, the refuting. Do you accept the government's response to this?
No, and there's a point of correction, 2 points of correction. The first one is it's a total sum of 200 million. So 50 million was paid to 4 lawyers, making it a grand sum of 200 million. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's not a claim if I get the document from the Lagos State agency's website, right? In January of this year, item 16 to 19, I believe, describe what these monies were used for. 50 million to be used to defend Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. It is described there. We got it from the Lagos State Agency's website as underneath a title that says awards that have been given. So these monies have been paid out. What we have seen in Lagos State is a situation where no matter what evidence you bring, and you saw it to the entire situation as well, they just come on air, they lie brazenly, and believe that the people will just forget, sweep it under the carpet, and they can move on. There are no consequences. So they carry on and push and keep pushing and really bastardizing the trust of the people. Right? So this is not rocket science. It's nothing that's complicated. I'm not hiring a special investigative journalist or a detective to go and get all these documents. They were so brazen that they did not realize that it is illegal for you to use taxpayers' money to pay your personal legal fees. It is illegal for you to use taxpayers' money to fund the decoration of a party office. It is illegal for you to use taxpayers' money to conduct Congress and delegate meetings for your political party. The political party that has the means to generate its own money from all these nomination funds, from its governors, all of that. They have their own process. Every political party has their process of generating money to run itself. So why should taxpayers that wake up early in the morning to go to work are remitting taxes through their payees, indirect taxes, direct taxes, multiple taxes? Why should they be funding the governor's legal bills? And even more so at a time like this where people are suffering so much. There's so much suffering in the land. The people that we have elected to be our servant leaders that are meant to serve should not be living in such opulence and spending money in such a vulgar way while people are suffering. The people cannot be living in these type of poverty conditions and people are taking money out of the Commonwealth to buy 400 million naira jeeps, to pay 200 million naira lawsuits. for their private need. The private legal representation for a governor should be handled by himself.
Okay, well, let's go a little further, and pretty much on the same thing. In response, I want you to quickly share your response to these two things. First of all, Gbenga Omotosho saying that these claims are false, and that yes, there might be documents here and there showing that they maybe had written invoices to pay people, but none of those funds were released. I did watch an interview where he said, I don't know if he was the one, but I believe he was the one, said
It's
that
him. He was the one.
Yeah, he said that none of these funds were released, and that it was somebody a dubious person who tried to create a budget or add it into the government spending so that the government will use this money to pay lawyers, but the Lagos State governor rejected it because that's not the way the Lagos State government functions, and they wouldn't use their state government money to pay lawyers and stuff like that. So I want your quick response to that the money was not paid. It was rejected by the governor when he saw it, on the list. And then second, when people say the tribunal started, the elections were in February, and you're talking about, a list that came up in January. So, there's no way that they could have been paying for tribunal, which happened much later, in January. How would you respond to those two things?
Okay, so let me start from your second question. Right, the process of electioneering in the courts starts with pre-election matters, which usually starts in November, even as far back as September, October of 2022. Right? So in the January document, you saw a description for a case that most likely was a pre-election matter. Now, however it's codified, PDP, 42 and others, and all of that, we don't know how many other cases were under that. We don't know what the codification, if that codification stops there. But the point of the matter is pre-election matters start before the elections, right? And APC was in court, or INEC was in court trying to defend a process that brought APC in. So there are several cases. I was involved in almost 4 pre-election matters, right, before the elections. And any serious political contender tries to ensure that they are keeping track of those things. The pre-election matters, they are in court, so someone is taking them to court and things like that. So that's the script, that's the explanation for that. To your first question, you see, again, I go back to the way the Lagos State government brazenly lied about what happened during the NSAS, only for us to later find a document, their own document, showing that they had plans to bury 120 people, right? So you look at the antecedents of how they handle situations, the way they lie, and how it comes out. Again, this document, and I encourage the journalists on your channel to go and look into these things. The procurement agency publishes documents every month saying the awards that have been given out. These are monies that have been paid out, right? And in the January document, you see the list of legal firms that got 50 million naira each to defend in the description itself. So I'm not interpreting, I'm literally telling you what is in Lagos State's own description. Instruction to defend Babajide Sanwo-Olu against PDP and 42 others. Right? That's the description there. In the June report, they talk about monies for furniture that was used to furnish a campaign office. Right? In the July report, they talk about monies that were used to host delegates to a congress. Number 252 in that report, I believe, and I believe so. And then the July one, number 52 or 51. So these things, these are not big documents. You go there, you see it, right? So they have a history of brazenly lying to the people. With the Lagos State government, the more you look, the less you see. But, at a point, the people have to realize that the politicians will only continue doing these things if they believe they can get away with it. if they believe there is no consequence. Now people are complaining about cars being ordered for 400, 500 million, while there's so much suffering. People are struggling with buying their asthma inhaler and things like that. If this goes unchecked, in the next 4 years, we will be budgeting $1 billion. You might think it's funny, but 6, 7 years down back, you will not be thinking someone is going to buy a Jeep for 400 million. Right? And this absurdity will carry on because governance is a two-way street. The people, the politicians, the opposition, they must keep the government that is in charge of our Commonwealth in check. And it's human as well. I mean, in England or anywhere in the world where, for instance, you read about an MP that spent over £200 and he retired. It did not just start like that, right? When you listen to Michelle Obama talking about how in the White House, whatever they order, if they have guests over and they order food, the White House bills and they have to pay. It did not just start like that. It's about a people demanding accountability and transparency from their leadership. And then the leadership realize that they have no choice but to submit to the will of the people because guess what? They have been elected to serve the people.
Yeah,
they are our servants. They are not our Lord.
Let me ask about that. You know, now that you've brought in Michelle Obama, because I remember that story, you know, that she told about, you know, getting even hosting people in the White House and how sometimes they had to pay out of pocket, you know, for it. But I want to ask about that. You know, if we're being realistic, you know, where we are today, 2023 Nigeria, we've looked across the country, we've seen that it's not just Lagos State. It's pretty much every state in the country is having the same issues with procurement. It is almost the way of life for every government. And there's not been any government that has come into office that has been able to prove, you know, or do things different. So I want you to speak on, you know, the focus will be on Lagos State. How do you think things maybe could have been done different? And I'm referring to the expectations, you know, that you have of public servants that want to also get their own piece of the pie. They want to find ways that they can get their own 100 million here, their own 5 million here, their own, even if it's 10,000. It's the way of life of public servants, you know, across the country. How do you think it could have been done different by the current governor of Lagos State, or if you were governor?
Okay, so I reject the idea that because something is the way people have done things, implies that that's the only way it can be, right? A culture is based on the ideas, the thoughts, the level of empathy of the people in leadership. I mean, there was a time where in Lagos, right, in the 1700s, it was okay to engage in human trafficking, to kidnap people, your fellow man, and sell them, right? And then some people came and said, no, this is not, even though we make money from this, this is not right, this is not human. And they literally had to bomb Lagos to accept this new ideology that these are your fellow men. They have a right to freedom and human trafficking is not acceptable. And then a new culture came out of it. I say that to say this, that leadership that exemplifies empathy will focus on ensuring that the funds available in the Commonwealth of Lagos is used to make the lives of the maximum amount of Lagosians better, especially at a time where things are so hard to question it. Now, this entails for me paying our civil servants a living wage, not a minimum wage, right? We must cut all this extravagance. I'm talking about 7 million for house deodorant, 2 billion for chairs, ridiculous amounts of money that could have been used to ensure that our civil servants are getting the maximum amount of salary that they can get so they can run efficiently. And you can now demand from them a corruption-free civil service, right? And then as the leader, right, you must lead by example. You cannot come and say you want to buy a 400 million naira car for yourself and then watch 90 or 75% of your civil service be entering bus to be going home. Especially at times like this where you're saying Lagos State does not have that much money, infrastructure deficit is still at an all-time high. There's so much that we can do to make the lives of Lagosians better. I still read, I think about 2 weeks ago, Lagos State loses about 4 trillion due to traffic every year, right? The healthcare system is a mess. Our education system is a mess. There is so much we can pump into, right? And invest in. And that should be the focus. And as a leader, you should be able to say, I mean, it's just like when you look at a supplementary budget from the presidency that was looking to renovate Jordan Barracks, that was looking to buy a fleet of cars for his convoy. And you look at the convoy that he already has before he became president, before he was sworn in, that's already presidential enough. So where does this, is it greed? Where does it stop? And I think that this consciousness coming into governance will start to change things and set things right. Because the idea that the people must now be prioritized, it's no more about us. It's about the people, right? The leaders cannot be living in opulence while the people are suffering. I mean, even APC stalwarts are online complaining about how difficult the country is now. If leaders have empathy, that's why they should be directing funds to healthcare insurance, micro health insurance, right? And things of that nature. So for me, it starts first with the leadership, the ideology, because all of us will sit down and agree that a Peter Obi presidency will not ask for money for a yacht. He has built his brand, it has been consistent over time, about a person that hates waste, that would like to focus on using money efficiently to push into education, push into healthcare. You might not agree with him on some other things, but that is not questioning. He has established that that is his pattern of, and that's what he's always talked about. In my campaigns, I constantly focus on transparency, accountability, and empathy, right? Because these qualities move a state forward. So that's what I believe. I don't believe we should get bogged down in the idea that, okay, this is happening everywhere. I mean, the kind of political system that we have throws up a similar type of person, right? If you can only win elections now by compromising or bringing thugs and violent people out on election day, or doing all sorts, it's a kind of consciousness that will be pervasive in our leadership.
Absolutely.
So the idea now is to change that consciousness, right? And do it knowing fully well that the people that are really doing the work, which are the civil servants, are paid handsomely. Your doctors are paid handsomely. Your teachers are paid handsomely. Because they are the NG. It's not the ones that are sitting there in the office pointing, do this, do that. No.
Mr. Rhodes-Vivour,
in front of our children, in front of our citizens in the hospital.
This perspective that you share, you've talked about your perspective and the things that have been the basis of your campaign, such as empathy, being able to prioritize the people of Nigeria. And you've talked about a Peter Obi-led government and what it would have looked like. Is this also, would you clearly say that this is also the ideal that the Labour Party, representatives or members of the Labour Party who are currently in office, would you say that they're also guided by this perspective? And I'll tell you why I'm asking.
I know why you're asking, and I'm already in agreement with you. You see, the Labour Party came together and we had a leader that has built a brand. And a number of other politicians came in and they tie into that brand, right? I would say I tie into that brand of non-wastage, that brand of empathy, that brand of putting people first. That brand of human capacity development. But then you also find that a number of other representatives, from their actions, do not tie into that brand. I'll give you an example, right? I believe that representatives of the Labour Party should have questioned the idea that cars that were being bought for that amount of money was being done in Nigeria at a time where there's such hardship. And that's my firm belief, and I'm not apologetic about it. I believe that they should have insisted that why don't we use cars that are made in Nigeria, the multiplier effect to allow for us to create more jobs, create a situation where we are saving our money, even if it's being assembled, at least a lot more of that money will stay in the country, right? So those are my thoughts. I feel that if His Excellency Peter Obi had got into presidency, then that idea, that brand, that force will come all the way down. But because that's not the case, they are stimulating into the brand that is in charge of affairs currently. So for me, the Labour Party still needs time to stew in these ideas, to stew in this is what we are about, this is who we are, right? To find people that also tie into that, and under leadership of our party leader, His Excellency Peter Obi, and others, I believe that we'll be able to create that cohesive political ideology. But it has not happened yet.
Yeah. Do you think?
Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, from what you're saying now, would it be your view that there have been elements who have taken advantage of the Peter Obi wave, and have basically plugged themselves into Labour Party, but they absolutely do not represent, what Peter Obi represents. They do not represent the ideals of what the Labour Party, under Peter Obi should represent. Are there persons that you can say have taken advantage, and are really just, like moles in the party? And I'm not talking about just in Lagos, I'm talking about across the whole country. Even people who have currently won elections on the Labour Party.
Yeah, so for me, it's an ongoing conversation. It's not so much about having moles in the party. We must also remember that ideology is not something that is, ideology is not something that has really taken root in our politics in our country. It's something new, right? When you see His Excellency Peter Obi came in and he was talking about ideas, it was not trying to divide people based on tribe or not coming to debate. So he was talking about ideas. He was creating an aspirational type of government. Like we can be this. We can operate at this level. We can aspire to be at this level. That's not something that is necessarily common in our politics, right? So I feel that it's going to take some time because a lot of people that have got into politics, they do not necessarily come in there with an ideology. They came in there based on the politics that's on ground, right? You do whatever you can do to win, and you then just, whether you give your constituency money every other month or you do some constituency project, the idea now is to solidify the basis of an ideology. And this will happen over a period of time. I mean, how many of us in the party knew ourselves? A lot of people rushed into the party, like you said, and they came in at the right time. Some people were already in the party, so there needs to be this unification of ideology, and it's going to happen, right? Because we have such a strong brand, and I believe that is something that people can buy into. But there must first come that idea that we will be willing to sacrifice, regardless of what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, but the challenge here.
On the full matter, so.
I apologize. Olive is going to go next. But the challenge here is that if you don't tackle these things immediately, by the time, you're talking about over time, it's going to be fine-tuned. Things are going to be, get better with Labour Party. You're going to be able to build that ideology and all of that. But if you continue to allow these characters to wear the Labour Party flag and be their true selves under that flag, it's going to make people lose interest or lose trust in Labour Party. And I think we may have already started to see that happen with the elections we've seen lately. Olive.
I agree with you. So there's a firm attempt and move to, like I said, to solidify this ideology. We are going to have congresses coming up. Leadership of party is going to be established again. All of this brings people into contact. Ideas will be shared. What we expect of our representatives. The idea that just because everybody else is doing this does not mean you should do this. This is what we represent. And that is going to happen sooner rather than later. And I agree with you. Because we did not get the followership that we did. His Excellency Peter Obi did not get the followership that he did by buying people or, selling an idea that I will share money. No. He got this followership. And even in Lagos State, I got this followership because we inspired hope and an idea. And the moment people feel that is not being brought to bear, they pull away. So we must ensure that that does not happen. And it's something that's an ongoing conversation in the party. And we're going to insist that that brand is adhered to.
All right. I'd like to ask, let's bring the conversation back to Lagos State now and talk about the document or the calling out that was done by the ADC gubernatorial candidate, Funsho Doherty, which you, of course, had referred to at some point on your social media platforms. Made a number of Nigerians talk about the procurement awards. The government, the Lagos State government, has come out to respond. Part of their responses would include, the typographical errors here and there, and they did justify some of the spendings. I'm sure you've had some time to look at it, and I don't know if you quite agree with any of the things that Lagos State government has said in this regard, and what you think that this, says about the current administration.
So from everything that I've seen, I feel that first there's the whole idea of a typo. That's the 1,998,000,000 naira mistake. Before you get to 2 billion, you get to 20 million, you get to 200 million, right? In terms of just commas and zeros. None of those mistakes happened. They went all the way from 2 million to 2 billion. So what we need to see is a proper audit that shows all those monies that were paid out in that document, in that report, and then let us see if it was 2 million that was paid out from the state account as opposed to 2 billion. And this has to be an external audit done by somebody by an institution we respect, right? They cannot audit themselves. That's the first thing. Secondly, anybody can justify or try to justify anything, right? Especially the government themselves. I celebrate Mr. Doherty because the idea is these people are serving the people, so this information should be put out to the people. And let the governments write their justifications, let the people read it and see, okay, if this is how they feel their money should be spent. Because people need to realize that this money is not external of them. This is their money. How that money is spent is the opportunity cost of having your children having a good school, right? You look at people, people can say that, oh, they're not getting paid a good salary. But they're not getting paid a good salary because you have sent your children to private school, you have sent your children abroad. Back in the days of my grandparents, right? My grandfather could send my father to St. Greg's. He did not have to worry about paying this humongous school fee. He could go get quality healthcare. So his salary was substantial enough, right? And that's where all these other services come into play. The system. When the healthcare system is working, the education system is working, then the salary, and it's affordable, the salary that you have can actually go a longer way. And for me, that's why I focus on impeachable offenses, right? Because these are things that even the Honorable Commissioner of Information has said, if it was done, it goes against the governor's oath of allegiance, it goes against everything, it is wrong, it is illegal. So there's no question. They have admitted it. We know it. And I guess they did not realize that we had downloaded the document. Maybe they thought it was just a screenshot floating in the air. But we have looked through all their documents, and like I've said, in January, that's where those payments were made.
Yeah. All right. So now, these are impeachable offenses. What would you be demanding of the Lagos State House of Assembly or any other person involved in a situation like this? Yes, the Lagos State government has come out to deny it, but aside a denial, there should be a process. There should be a process through which these things will be investigated, be verified. There should be a process in the state that doesn't need the government or the governor to give a go-ahead.
Exactly.
The system should work.
So yes. So for us now, we've done the honorable thing of calling the governor to resign. That's the honorable thing to do. If he doesn't do that, our party, I'm talking to the party, and we're going to put a letter forward to the Speaker of the State Assembly to commence impeachment proceedings, because this is an impeachable offense. You are seeing state assemblies raise high water, right? For things that don't even come anywhere close to this, right? Just because maybe an opposition leader is in charge or something, they try to impeach and cause all sorts of nonsense. We are bringing this to the state assembly now to see if they are just a rubber stamp state assembly or if they are going to do the right thing by protecting the interests of the people, right? So we're going to do that and see what they do. The idea for us is, as citizens and as politicians, we must believe in the system, right? It's just like the same reason why I'm going on to the Supreme Court, right? Is because I must believe in the system. I must believe that you can only change things by engaging with it, right? Our matter is a very simple one. The Supreme Court, the Constitution frowns on people that have sworn an oath of allegiance to another entity because it brings into the situation conflict of interest, especially for a chief security officer, right? And the same Constitution also states how if you have sworn an oath of allegiance, you can approach the National Assembly to see how you can dissociate yourself from it. That was not done by Deputy Governor. So it's a locus classicus because this issue has never come before the Supreme Court before. And we're looking to the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution and let us see if that number one item, right, is just in the Constitution for fun. And if, no other country in the world will accept their president or governor having sworn oath of allegiance to another country, right?
All right.
So we want to see what they'll do. But to your question, we're going to push this forward to the State Assembly and see what they do, right? Because the governor is immune. So it's only through the State Assembly that we can see any form of action in this situation. We can't take him to court.
I think my follow-up to this exact answer of yours would be, we hear you. I hear you on what you intend to do or what you intend to achieve. But do you genuinely believe that this intended result is what will be achieved? And I ask this because we see a lot of civil societies, civil organizations, a number of them come to mind even at this moment, that write letters and make this moves, but it almost feels like it's just routine, that there would be some noise and eventually it will be a matter that will be swept under the carpet. Do you genuinely believe that the State House of Assembly would actually be able to action on this letter that you're going to write and that it would lead to your desired result?
You see, it's not about my desired result, right? Like I said when I started this conversation, governance can only move forward when the citizens and the opposition actually take it to task. In the event that the State Assembly shows itself to be ineffectual, the people will see that State Assembly is ineffectual. So tomorrow, if by chance the State Assembly wants to start making any sort of drama or any sort of action based on something that does not even come close to this, then we can say that this is very hypocritical of you, State Assembly, right? So you have to set track records for people. You have to give people a chance to actually show that they merit and they are following what they are supposed to do. They are following their function. So you respect their position in government, right? So that they're setting precedents for themselves. And it's important. You don't just wait till you're in power to be able to change things. No. You'll be surprised that there are some people in State Assembly that will say, you know what, this thing is wrong and we should do something about it. You must give people a chance. So it's not about routine. You see, governance and government and the ideas of government don't change overnight. It's about consistency. You have to be consistent in demanding what you want. You have to be consistent. The people then buy into that idea and they come behind you and they consistently now start to hold their people in government to a higher standard. What if we all keep quiet? Guess what happens? It only gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. All right. We're going to, eventually get your thoughts on, going forward with regards to the Supreme Court, what steps you're going to be taking and if you're going to be taking any, those steps. But I also want to, talk about something that I've seen lately in the last couple of days. There's been allegations of demolitions happening in Lagos State, but the allegations are that they are targeted against people from the Southeast. If you remember that, prior to the elections and during the elections and post-election, there was an intense level of bigotry that, sprung up. It was intentionally brought into the conversation, to maybe defeat a different party, from the other. So I want you to share your thoughts on that bigotry that seems to currently exist around the conversations on governance, and then also those who allege that these demolitions are targeted against Igbos in Lagos. There's not been any actual proof of that. So, but what would your thoughts be on these things?
Okay. So I would say that let's not even look at this election that just happened. Let's look at elections that happened in 2015 when Gbadebo was the candidate for the PDP.
Yeah.
There was extensive level of bigotry. They called him Jimmy Chukwu. They put banners in on Lagos Island. There are still pictures up to now. The Oba of Lagos came and threatened people that they'll be drowned in the lagoon. There was violence against people, not to the level that it got to in 2023. But when you see this antecedent, this precedent, you realize that the APC government in Lagos State has a policy of bigotry, right? It's what they've always had. It's the card that they always play. It's a divide and conquer kind of situation, right? So if we use the 2015 election as a case study, and there's so much information that's still online on Twitter, all the things that they did is what they do. And the unfortunate thing, and I always say this, is Lagos State in itself has a very unique story. From the time of people that trace their ancestry to Oduduwa, the Dejo ruling class, to the aristocracy that came from Benin, to the European that came and then did colonization, to the returnees that came back and brought development. It's a place that has always welcomed people, and that's why it became the center of excellence. That is why there's so much trade and commerce that the richest man in Africa has a house, has his office in Lagos, right? The who and who of Nigeria have their house home in Lagos. Lagos State was also the former federal capital. So there is no state in Nigeria that can compare itself to Lagos in terms of all the benefits that Lagos has actually had, all the blessings in terms of the amount of investment from different peoples, as I've highlighted from 1600 up to now. So, but the APC government, especially when you look at from times of all of them, Sarmi, Funshaw Williams, anybody that comes in opposition to this Southwest APC, it's the tribal sentiment, it's the bigotry. They have a policy of bigotry, is what they do. So that's not surprising. Now, in terms of the demolition and stuff, you see, when you don't have an open, transparent process, things can be colored in all sorts of ways. There might be people that did not get planning permission, right? And the house was demolished, and they will now come and say it's because I'm from this tribe. But I'm in construction. I'm an architect by profession. I engage in construction. I have a project in Surulere. Inside the inner estate, right? The same week I started work there, first the area boys will come and exact something from me. Then Alausa will send these people to come, whether it's about safety, you have to have your site in proper safety situation, you pay, the local government to send people. And this happens all over Lagos. I have projects in Echos, I have projects on Adeni Jones. I experience this thing consistently in the same time. So how is it possible that a project goes to the point where people could buy it? Not just the developers have built it. They have put it on the market and people could now buy it. Just look at the time span. And these people claim that they have planning permission. So who is giving this planning permission? Who is allowing for this development to get to this stage? And who is going to be held accountable? Because if I bought a property from a developer, surely you should be bringing that developer to book. It's not enough for the government to just be punishing people. It's hard time where people are suffering. They are going to just be destroying people's houses willy-nilly, right? Without actually trying to bring anybody to book. Is it the developer that you're going to bring to book? Is it the local government chairman? Is it the people that are normally in charge of ensuring that these processes follow due process? What were they doing at all of this time? And then there must be a process or a period by which people can come in a transparent way. We know the office that they go to. We know that they'll be heard. They go there with their documents and they'll be heard. They'll be seen. Not just, oh, bring your documents. Bring your documents to who? Who in Alausa? Who is going to see them? What special body has been set up to bring some kind of social justice to this situation that people are having to go through? You come, you give them 3 hours to move all their luggage out. You see, and I go back to this empathy. Empathy. I am all for wetland protection plan, right? I'm all for ensuring that our state is planned in such a way that flooding does not exist. But also, I'm all for humanity. I'm all for the people living their representation. That must be. The state must also take responsibility because we know how they work. Anybody in development, anybody in construction knows how government works in Lagos State. They come and they charge you all sorts once the project starts, from digging, from you even just getting a delivery of sand. They're already there.
Yeah.
So how do projects get this far?
All right.
And the government must also take responsibility.
Absolutely. We're fast running out of time. There's so much to talk about, and we thank you for your time. But I would like to confirm with you, we know that you've rejected the judgment by the Appeal Court. Are you going to the Supreme Court?
Oh, certainly. We've already filed our notice of appeal, right? And like I said, our case is a very simple matter. We've gone away from violence and all that because that becomes, and even the election, this whole process needs reform because there's a lot of pressure on the petitioner to prove things that really is INEC that should be proven, but that's besides the point. Our matter is a very simple one. The Constitution protects a child that is born to, let's say, people of dual nationality. So you have a Nigerian father, you have a British mother, you are dual citizen. Because the child does not have a say in any of that, right? So if you're born that way, or if you just went to America, you had your child as an American citizen, Constitution protects their rights. The question, because that child never has to swear an oath of allegiance. He's just given his passport as a child, he's a citizen. The problem now comes where you, in your older age, go and naturalize, then you have to swear an oath of allegiance, which then brings into the situation a conflict of interest. Because your oath of allegiance, you're swearing fidelity to a foreign state, but then you're also trying to be chief security officer of another state, right? And the Constitution, when you read it, that particular section on disqualification of president and the governor, because they are word for word, whatever goes for the governor goes for the president, makes it clear that you are disqualified if you swear an oath of allegiance. And in the event that you have sworn an oath of allegiance, you can approach the House of Representatives or National Assembly to see how you can get out of it, right? But the ideal constitution is that the people that are in charge, the instruments of that constitution, have sole fidelity to the state and to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This matter has never come up before the Supreme Court before, so that's why it's a labor of love to the Supreme Court for them to explain this part of the Constitution, and by God's grace, in their wisdom, they will shed light on it, and let's see how it goes.
Can I just ask on a final note, as quickly as possible, whilst we're waiting for the Supreme Court to explain and shed more light on what this means, do you see yourself running at the next elections, at the 2027 general elections?
For me, I'm focused on right now. Supreme Court, maybe I'm biased, my family has put in a lot in judiciary in Nigeria for 3 generations. So I believe in our judiciary, right? I know that there have been things of all sorts of controversies, but I'm going to hold on to that faith. Yeah. Aside from that, my main aim now is to build the Labour Party, like conversations we've had today, the ideas, the ideology, and all of that. 2027 will take care of itself. I'm not anywhere thinking about that right now. Right. I don't even know what the state of the country will be at that point in time. So we need to focus on now and ensure that our government and the people in charge are kept on their toes so that they can deliver quality governance to the people of our country and our state.
Would yourself and the likes of Funshaw Doherty maybe consider building together a much more forceful opposition here in Lagos State?
I think that we're already doing that. I think him pushing on his own with his own strengths, the chartered accountant is fantastic at looking through forensically looking through documents and accounts and all of that. I'm doing my own thing. Altogether, all of us must put our hand on deck to hold this government accountable. The politics of it is a completely different thing. But at this point in time, as citizens, we must all put our hands on deck. Whatever you see, talk about it. If I see something about urban planning, I talk about it. If you see something about financial misappropriety, he talks about it. And that's the way we move forward.
All right. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, interesting speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And for sharing your thoughts on these very important things. We, of course, will follow up on these conversations and hopefully we get to bring you in again.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.